saying that I'm the podcast glue that holds the show together?
Would you not say that?
Yeah, I would not say that.
Oh.
I don't hold anything together.
So I was going to say it's very kind of you to imply that I am, but maybe this is not being held together at all.
Maybe it's not. Maybe this whole thing is just an elaborate gag we've been pulling on ourselves for the last few years.
Is it similar to the elaborate gag that they pull on young Koryo Snow in order to teach him about the inherent violence of humanity?
And by they, you mean her, and by her, you mean Viola Davis, I guess?
I guess it's going to be Viola Davis. What a squad.
No, you expressed concern that Viola Davis is playing probably the most evil character in the history of the Hunger Games. I would say that her audition for this role was just her playing Amanda Waller.
Yeah, it is,
DC
except
movies.
it's a very different kind of evil from Amanda Waller. Amanda Waller's evil is so staid and almost quotidian, whereas this woman is like a clown. She's a clown.
She is even more of a clown if you listen to it on audiobook, where the narrator cackles and giggles his way through the character to such a degree that I just had to start rolling my eyes every time he came on. And he's not an unfamous narrator, but we'll get to him. What are we even doing here?
I was going to ask a question that was specific to what you were saying, but I've changed my mind. What are we talking about?
Who are we? Why are we here? What's going on?
Oh, this is a podcast. That's who we are. We
I was
are
afraid you were going to say it was a podcast.
No. This is a podcast called Pizza Toast. We talk about YA movie and book adaptations. Right now we're talking about the Hunger Games. We've been talking about the Hunger Games for some time. Took a little bit of a break.
We did.
Because we had to get ready for this. Oh, my name's Christy.
My name is Phil.
And I have been waiting with bated breath to be able to talk about the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, Hunger Games something? Does it have a subtitle?
It's just a Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I don't think it's not called anything else. It says a Hunger Game novel by Suzanne Collins, like above her name, but it's in the tiniest print.
Okay. I hope her name is bigger than her franchise.
If you didn't realize it was a Hunger Games novel by looking at the cover, there's something terribly wrong with you. Because...
It's a pretty strong aesthetic carrying through. This one's green, right?
Right. We've never discussed the covers of the books.
We did a little as far as like what colors they are, but I think that is it.
But these books are the book covers have always been designed by the same illustrator whose name is suddenly let me just pull it up here. Tim O'Brien has always done the illustrations. He's a world famous illustrator. He's done like Time Magazine, Rolling Stone, National Geographic. Like if you saw his other works, you'd be like, oh, that guy. Like anyone, just do Tim O'Brien, Google Tim O'Brien, and you'll be like, oh, him. But they brought him back for this one, fortunately.
It's a striking cover. It's like, hey, remember these books that you know and love? Here's one, kind of.
Yeah, it's got a songbird. It's got a snake.
It's got three parts.
But he was stuck with the, I guess he couldn't do like, because the other ones had to kind of look like a pin.
Yeah.
Like variations on her pin. But this is pre-pin.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because we're like, what, like 64 years before the first
I think
book.
it's 64 is the number we nailed down, which makes Snow so much older than I realized.
Right. I guess because he's what, like in his early 20s in this book.
Yes.
Coriolanus Snow.
Coriolanus Snow. When we meet him, he's 17, 18. He's
Oh, is he only that old?
Yeah. He's
I guess you're right.
In his early 20s by the end of the book because he finishes his senior year. Their curriculum is to help facilitate the Hunger Games. That's what they do.
Yeah.
As high school students.
So this is our prequel novel that they asked Suzanne Collins. Like, so I didn't hear much about this book when it came out.
That could have been to do with when it came out, because I didn't realize that it was right in the throes of the apocalypse, because this was released in early or like the early half of 2020.
Right. Well, May 19th.
Yeah.
2020, like right when we were just realizing that the world was actually coming to an end.
Yeah, we had been told 2 weeks. It had gone longer than 2 weeks. We're at the 2-month mark. No one was okay anymore. A lot of people were doing jigsaw puzzles. Like, just a lot was going on.
We had already had at this point the celebrities seeing Imagine, right?
Oh, yeah, we absolutely had. That happened pretty quickly.
Yeah. And we were gearing up in my city for some intense demonstrations.
Yeah, some in mine too.
Yeah.
They weren't quite the same. I don't think it was ever quite the same level as yours.
But we were just realizing we were in it for a long haul and not quite realizing how long that haul was going to be. Probably weren't really paying much attention to what Suzanne Collins is up to, because she hadn't been up to much in 10 years.
No, she doesn't release anything in this window, right?
She does. She releases one children's picture book called Year of the Jungle in 2013, which I haven't been able to read. I only read the beginning of like what samples are available, but it is a children's picture book, like a large format storybook about her father going to Vietnam when she was like 4 or 5 years old. And basically the trauma that occurs when a parent goes to war and then returns a different person from the perspective of a little child who doesn't understand what war is and just thinks that her dad is going off for a fun adventure in the jungle, which in the book states her only frame of reference is that her favorite cartoon is George of the Jungle. So she's like, this should be, and then like as the year goes on and people start treating her differently and they're like, we're praying for your dad, and she's like, I don't know what this means. And then he comes back and he's like a shell of the man he was. So that's in the interim between Mockingjay and the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Suzanne Collins published one thing, and it was literally just another book about the horrors inflicted upon children due to war. Because that's what she does.
Sounds kind of great, though.
Yeah, what I've seen, it looks like a pretty amazing picture book.
I'd like to read it, but instead I read this. This book that feels very much like she was asked to write this. But
according to her interviews, that when people were like, so why this, why now? She says it's because she was reading about the state of nature debate from the Enlightenment period. And that she said, I have 2 worlds. I have Gregor the Overlander and I have the Hunger Games. And now those are her worlds. And whenever there is a topic she wants to write about, she'll just dip into one of those universes and write about it. The state of nature debate during the Enlightenment, philosophical discussion about the hypothetical condition of human beings pre-society. So like Thomas Hobbes thought that we were by nature solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. That's what life was like before we had society. Locke believed that we enjoyed natural rights of life and liberty and property, but that the government needed to exist to protect those rights, and that people have a right to overthrow a government that doesn't protect their rights, and that Rousseau said that nature is in harmony always, and that political systems only give rise to social inequality and further oppression, something like that. So there's like these 3 philosophical ideas that all sort of juggle what are people? Do people need strict rules? Are we naturally beasts? Or are we naturally good people? And that's
this is a telling framework.
Yeah. Also dipping into the veneer theory that we touched on a little bit in previous episodes about like if the rules fall away, do we just become animals again? Our villain in this book certainly believes so.
Oh my goodness. It's interesting because she is framed as a villain, but by the end of the book, she is of course an ally because he has to become evil over the course of the book. He's not evil at the end of this book. He's just a confused little boy still.
Kinda. I mean, she drops enough hints throughout this. Like, Coriolanus Snow, throughout the book, falls in love, kind of, but he never thinks of the woman he falls in love with as anything other than property. Also, can you fall in love with someone who is your prisoner and who has no rights? Apparently
that's a thing that you can do, and he does do. So this is the gist of this book. This is more or less the development of what the Hunger Games would become.
In a very Shakespeare in Love kind of way. And
Yes.
like, hey, you ever wonder where this came from? Well, apparently the Hunger Games, as we know, all came to be in 1 year, all because of one guy who fell in love with one girl.
And devised some traps. Just a couple of traps.
Periodically said things like, what if we let people bet on the Hunger Games? And, hey, you've got some drones. What if they brought people food in the arena? And what if people were allowed to send gifts to food to the arena? And I wonder what this song is about. There's a lot of songs in this book.
There's so many songs in this book. And it also does the thing we talked about this, how, like, people who write really solid narrative novels are not necessarily poets.
Anne Rice. I mean, I think actually like her son or her husband wrote the poems or the songs for Vampire List or Queen of the Damned. But those are some of the most egregious song lyrics ever committed to paper.
These are not the worst. They also fit in the context of the world because, okay, yeah, this book ends up, it's still about snow, but one of the main secondary characters is the woman he falls in love with, kind of girl. She's a girl too. Let's talk about.
She's a girl.
Yeah, she's like 16, which is fine.
A character hinted at in the first Hunger Games book, the only person to ever from District 12 ever to win a Hunger Games, is briefly mentioned in the first book. Suzanne Collins said that she already knew who this character was when she wrote that, but that she changed a lot as she wrote this book. But she always kind of knew that there was this spunky spitfire of a traveling troubadour who was the original winner of the District 12 winner of the Hunger Games until Hamish Abernathy came along.
Yeah.
But Rachel Ziegler will be playing her.
Good casting, I think.
YouTube's own Rachel Ziegler.
I think she will be good, but
I'm sure she'll be good. I'm sure she'll be fine. She's sweet. She can sing.
She has to sing a lot. That being said, this is a book about young Choreo Snow.
Oh, Choreo.
How
only his friends get to call him that, Christy.
How he's kind of poor.
Yeah, because so framework is this is 10 years after the rebellion of the districts. It's set in the capital, but the capital was essentially like under siege for a while.
It's kind of ravaged yet. It's not doing
very
great.
Stalingrad. We've got people were starving to death, people were dying in the streets, and people were eating the bodies of those who were dying.
Yeah, there's a nod at cannibalism that comes up like 6 more times throughout the text.
It's not a nod. We see a guy cut the arm off of a child and take it back to his butcher shop.
Yeah, that's okay. We're more than
that's not a nod at cannibalism. That's cannibalism writ large.
The thing we find out is that this person meat was taken home to a classmate of Snow's, and he doesn't know if she knows that she eats people.
Right. So while the capitalist still rules over the districts, they're still reeling from what happened 10 years ago. But it also even though the districts were in the right to try to overthrow the oppressive capital, you are left with something of understanding of how traumatized the capital is at this point.
Yeah, because we know that they were more or less in the right to try to take this down, but that doesn't mean that people on this side didn't suffer, because they definitely did. And there's much more of it's like an unspoken hierarchy, because you still have the very rich, and then you have people like the Snows who are faking rich, but certainly not.
Yeah, it's like in a Chekhov play.
Yeah.
Like, they're still living rich, but they have no money and food is scarce. His parents, I guess, were fully invested in the weapons manufacturing in District 13, which no longer exists. But it also is interesting because one of our other main characters, Sejanus Plinth, his family's from District 2, and they invested in other things, like other weapons from another airplanes. And so now they're rich and they got moved to the capital, which means there is, or was at least at this point, the possibility of social mobility. Like you could, if you had enough money, climb up to the district, but you were still never going to be respected.
I'm going to be honest, I think this book would be a lot more interesting if it were about him.
I'm going to be honest, I think this book would be a lot more interesting if it were divided into several books, because there is so much plot in this book.
So much happens, and at the same time, the surface is barely scratched with some of these people. Did you know that Tigress was related to Coriolanus Snow? Because I didn't know they were cousins, and something happened, but we don't know what it was.
Yeah, Tigress is a main form of support for Snow. They're best friends, childhood friends, go way back. It's implied that she had to sell her body for food during the hard times, and it makes him cringe to think of her having to do that. They are confidants, soulmates. The story, she just gets forgotten about.
Yeah, she's one of the main characters in part 1 of 3, because this is divided into 3 parts again, and then basically a non-entity in the rest of it.
Yeah. And it's wild, which I know that she has said that there's not another, she's not going to come back to the Hunger Games with a novel unless she feels the need to. But you are left just assuming, okay, I guess she just was unhappy with what happened to Snow in the intervening 70 years, because it may as well have been a different character.
Yeah. I don't know why.
There's no reason for it to have been Tigress.
No. Remember this guy? Well, she's different now. She certainly wasn't 80 in her 80s in the right. That too. I mean,
movie.
This is I don't really understand how the math works, even with Snow's age. But
right. But I assume that they have. Well, I guess in the book he's supposed to have so much cosmetic surgery that he looks like a uncanny valley person.
Yeah, but, and I'm sure there are ways to prolong life because they live in the capital. And it's fine. It doesn't matter. Eyes on the prize here. What's going on in this book? Everything's happening in this book. Mostly some Hunger Games.
There is Hunger Games. These are your barest boned Hunger Games, which is kind of interesting. This makes sense how this was the original Hunger Games. Basically they just took all the tributes, they starve them for a week, they throw them into a pit, give them a bunch of weapons, and the Hunger Games seems to have originally just lasted a couple of hours. Yeah, because they would all be starving. They would all have been they were loaded up on cattle cars, treated basically like the Nazis did, thrown into an arena, an actual broken down coliseum, and they died within a matter of hours because they were all so weak anyway.
Yeah. And it seems extraordinarily boring to watch in a way.
Yeah, no one wants to watch it.
Yeah, so because one of Snow's other brilliant ideas is to make this more of an event, something that is actually interesting to watch on TV. And that ties in with the betting. It ties in with rooting for specific people. The mentors are not people who have won the Hunger Games. Oh no, they're children. The mentors are just children.
Yeah, it's part of an experiment. They're we're going to see what happens if we have mentors this year, and we're going to select them from kids in the capital, and you're going to pair up with one of the Hunger Gamers. And everyone's
Hunger Gamers.
They're I hope I get someone from a good district, because this is all about status and making it into a good school. And Snow has no money, so he's relying. Also, the headmaster at his school hates him. We don't know why. It's a very Professor Snape relationship.
It is, and we find out why eventually, and it is kind of a good reason, but it's also a very funny reason to me. I think it's laughable, the conclusion of this.
And then there is the mad scientist, Viola Davis, who I can't remember her actual name.
Yeah, I don't remember what her name is. She's bad. She's a very bad person. She carries around mutts, as pets.
Yeah.
She makes really pretty snakes. Those snakes sound very cool, by the way.
She is. I'm trying to find her name because she's all throughout this book. Let's see, Sejanus Plinth, Arachne Crane, Clemencia.
Incredible names again, by the way. Like, I feel like a lot of this was an excuse for Suzanne Collins to come up with a lot of capital names.
So one of the teachers, Viola Davis's character, she is known as the head game maker, and her name is Volumnia Gall. Volumnia Gall.
Dr. Gall.
Dr. Gall, who is a mad scientist, poisons one of Coriolanus's friends with evil snakes and makes her a swollen snake.
Yeah, makes her kind of a snake person, but not quite. Not entirely a snake person.
Yeah, you think that's going to go somewhere, but it doesn't.
It would be great if it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Coriolanus, I hate saying his name so much,
I hate saying Corio even more.
I don't know which I hate more yet. I kind of default to Snow. Is granted Lucy Gray Baird as his tribute.
Right.
She is the tribute from District 12. She claims to not be from District 12. She simply lives there. She is a member of a group called the Covey. These are Romani people, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Troubadours. They used to travel between districts until that got I guess it used to be easier to go from district to district, but then the peacekeepers just sort of tamped down on that, so they just got trapped in District 12. But yeah, they are essentially Romani. They are Patrick Rothfuss Name of the Wind-esque characters. They are all singers and jugglers and tumblers, and it's like what's the Fellini not Fellini what's his face what's the say I'm playing chess with death.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Swedish film, not Ingmar Bergman. A knight faces off against death across a chessboard. Seventh seal, the seventh sign, the seventh seal, the seventh. I'm confusing it with a movie from the 1980s starring what's her face, Demi Moore.
Of course you are.
That has a group of traveling players.
Yeah, it's a little bit of also a lot of post-apocalyptic stories have one of these. You've got your in Y the Last Man. There's like a traveling Shakespeare troupe. Station 11. This is 11, which is always going to be the first one I think of because it's my favorite book. A very similar situation. Got some cool tattoos in that one. In this one, they just have they're just named after colors. That's their cool thing.
They are named after colors and folk songs.
Yes, I assume they all look like the ensemble in Hadestown. They all
they are. This is the ensemble.
And you know what? I don't hate this concept. I think it's fun. I think it's fun that she's kind of like an outlander. Like, she is not of District 12 like anyone we actually meet when we get to District 12, because, spoiler alert, the last third of this book fully takes place in District 12.
They are the types of characters who in the intervening 64 years, I assume, are just done away with.
Yeah, I think they die out. In part, I think they slip away from District 12, but that would mean they have no shelter at all.
Well, there's rumors of people who live outside the districts up north, which I assume is like Canada. I assume if you cross the border. Oh, this is also the first time we ever hear reference to the United States of America.
Right.
Coriolanus is like, Lucy or Coriolanus is like, this place used to be the United States of America. Mm-hmm. And we're like, oh, wow, it was weird. It was like if someone in Star Wars was like, I'm going to Jamba Juice. You'd be like, oh, God, what?
That's on Ferrex. I'm watching Andor right now.
Oh, I love Andor. It's very good.
Andy Serkis was in it.
He's very good in it.
He's so good.
Yeah.
He had one line reading in the last episode that I literally said, yeah, loud after it happened. Anyway.
Bread and Serkis's Panem, the
Bread
Hunger
and Serkis's, correct, yes. So, yeah, Lucy becomes his tribute. At first, he is devastated when this is announced, but where they are all watching the reapings, he sees her sing a little song, a little ditty. Mm-hmm. She also throws a snake at a girl.
No, she puts a snake down a girl's back. The daughter of the mayor of her town.
Yeah, this girl's no good. Lucy really gives her comeuppance. She sings a song. This is also when Coriolanus finds out, like, the peacekeepers are kind of cool with this girl.
Yeah.
We'll understand why better later, but she seems neat. She introduces herself. She does a little concert. He realizes he might have something here.
Yes. So she's the first tribute to ever, like, sort of wow the crowd.
Right.
Which plants seeds. Like, maybe if the tributes all had talents, maybe in the future sometime.
And everybody else, the only thing they're really going off is like the strength level. So like there's a guy from District 11 who's enormous.
Yeah.
The kids from Finnick Town, USA, are really good with water weapons, like that sort of thing.
We have a proto Beatty and Wirus.
We sure do, and I really enjoy them.
Also, we find out that rabies is a pretty bad concern in this time in the world.
Yeah,
so that comes into play later.
It only does once, but when it does, it is horrifying. It is. Yeah. It's not great. Yeah.
We should mention up top that it's not even up top anymore, but we should mention that this is probably the most violent book of the series. Just
I think so.
In the brutality of the world. Like the whole world is brutal at this point. I mean, the world's brutal in the other books, but there's just it's visceral in this book in different ways.
I think what's different to me is that it is relentless here in a way that I can only remember a few instances in the prior books where like I actually really remember something being brutal. But here it keeps going to the point where you're somewhat desensitized by the end, which is part of the point. We're supposed to, but...
Yeah, because the Capitol is still dead set on punishing the districts. So, like, when a child dies, and many die before the Hunger Games even begin... My phone is ringing. Go away. Many die before the Hunger Games begin, and then the district will tie the corpses to the backs of cars and like drive them to the streets, or hang their bodies up in the arena to sort of taunt the other players. Like there's no hovercrafts coming and gently lifting the bodies away with giant claws.
No, they leave. There's late in the games, not even late in the games, one of the people like makes basically like a funeral pyre without fire of the dead tributes. Like just lays them all out together. It's very grotesque.
So Snow helps out Lucy Gray by he slips her some poison so that she can maybe have an advantage. They have like the little interviews beforehand, but it's just a bunch of tired, starving children, and Lucy Gray manages to kind of pull a Katniss by wearing a nice dress and singing a song.
They love when she sings a song.
But this is our first hint that Coriolanus might not be prime dating material, because she sings a song about just a guy, and he's like, why is she singing a song about a boy? She should be singing a song about me. And this stays one of his personality traits through the rest of the merest hint that Lucy Gray has any kind of past is not part of his vision of what a perfect girl is.
No, and he develops a crush on her, but he doesn't view her as anything more than property, as you said before, and he mostly just has this idea of her, right? This is the first time he says this is the first time he's ever felt anything for any, like in this regard.
Right.
And they kiss, it seems fine. Seems great for both of them. I could never suss out in the beginning if she was manipulating him or not, but her intentions seem pure enough at this point.
Yeah, by the end of the book, I'm not sure if she's pulling an ex machina on him or not. Like,
you're right.
I don't know how much of what she's doing is I can use this guy. She seems genuine enough, but she also seems smart enough to know how to play somebody. I mean, I'm not saying she's sneaky. I'm just saying she's a survivor, and these people are all survivors.
I mean, she figures out at the end that he's no good.
The end of this book is terrifying.
It's rough. It's really rough.
He breaks from reality in such a way that he becomes abusive partner without having the other part. Like if she had been there, it would have gone terrible. It's terrible. In any case,
it's his actual villain origin story is the last little bit. Because during this part, he is okay. It's important to talk about how Sejanus is the most guileless boy in the history of boys.
It's also important to point out that at no point are they referred to as the Anus brothers, but they should have been.
I hate saying both their names, as I said, but yeah, Plinth, that is last name?
Sejanus Plinth, yes.
So he has daddy issues, and so does Coriolanus, and they should bond over that. But instead they bond over, like, Coriolanus realizing that he could maybe get in on some upward mobility if he hangs out with this kid. So there's a scene where he saves Sejanus's life, but it is a very selfish endeavor. I don't remember exactly why it's selfish.
He's told to. He has to do it.
Yeah.
Sejanus sneaks into the arena, and Snow is sent in after him by Viola Davis's character, and he's like, ugh. And then he's locked into the arena and isn't going to be let out until he gets Sejanus out. So, like, he keeps accidentally being a hero to this boy.
Yeah. He also keeps accidentally thinking of ideas for the Hunger Games. Like, his intent isn't as malicious at this point. It's like, it's mostly grandstanding. It's mostly wanting to get ahead, like, get a scholarship, get into whatever the next step would be of being like a deal maker in the capital.
Yeah, and many of his Hunger Games ideas are improvements for the sake of the tribute.
Right, because...
Like, he's trying to help out the future. Like, he's like, okay, they should be fed. They shouldn't be abused. Like, I won't say it's with the best of intentions, because it's there to help his own tribute, but you realize these kids are brutalized in this book in ways they aren't in the original books.
Yeah. So yeah, he sneaks Lucy some poison. Lucy is clever enough that she does a pretty good job in the games anyway. She wins the games.
Yeah, she ends up killing a few people. The other tribute from District 12 gets rabies.
Yeah, it's awful.
It's horrible, and he goes nuts.
He tries to attack Lucy.
Yeah. And this is when people in the district or in the capital are like, he must have brought... Because the people from the districts are seen as animals.
Yeah.
And...
Yeah, they put them in a literal monkey house.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. They have to sleep in an old monkey house at an abandoned zoo where they get bit by rabid raccoons at night. And people are like, wait a minute, we have rabies in the capital? And so it's a little bit of that... Like, the people in the capital don't quite realize what the world is actually like. Mm-hmm. And they will realize less of it as the years go on.
So they become more and more isolated, yes.
Yeah.
So after Lucy wins the games, the dean, who is always high, by the way. Like, I didn't mention this.
Like, literally.
He's very much like a morphling guy. Like, he's just kind of, he's got some with him at all times. He's just re-upping his supply. We find out somewhere down the line that he and Coriolanus' dad were really good friends.
Yeah.
And there was a falling out that no one will tell Snow why they weren't friends anymore, which is fun.
Yeah, until the very end.
Till the very end, which is great. But this dean is like, you helped her. You took advantage. You broke the rules. You will now become a peacekeeper.
Which is funny because I'm like, Coriolanus only made the Hunger Games more interesting, and there's really no rules to the Hunger Games at this point. No. Like, I don't know how, he's so worried about breaking the rules, but I'm like, what are they're just throwing children into an arena to die. You find out later that he's not actually in trouble, but he's told he's in trouble.
I love this is a test and you pass portion of this book.
It's pretty ridiculous.
They speed through it so quickly, almost as though they knew that it was a little silly. It's pretty good.
Yes. Oh, yeah, the end of this book happens in like 3 pages. And
it does. It does. So naturally, Coriolanus requests District 12. He's like, maybe I can reunite with my sweetheart, Lucy Gray.
Wait, did you say that he's forced into Peacekeeper School?
Yes. So he's So he's forced into Peacekeeper School. He shows an excellent aptitude for it. He's like a brilliant tactician, as we already know this from books. He doesn't learn that he loves poison yet. But he did have a brush with how great poison can be in the prior section.
How great it can be.
The man loves poison. It's like,
he does. He loves it so much he starts putting it on his lips or something later on in the book. Hey, guess what, poisoners of the world? You don't have to eat the poison you use.
It was all part of his plan. But like he's trying to make the best of the Peacekeeper thing. I mean, he's making money now for his family. Like,
yeah, it's maybe my favorite part of the book.
I think it's the best part. I think it's the tightest. I think it has actual like characters in it that are not just like, here is another friend of his from the capital who's not actually great. Like, it's a lot of those in the beginning.
Yeah, the capital kids are all. I mean, I hate to keep using this as an example, as a touchstone, but they're all. It's like it's Slytherin school. Like, it's just a bunch of people of various degrees of antagonism.
Yeah. bunch of sniveling rich kids, and there are a couple of them who are nicer than others. Like, his friend Clemencia is actually one of the kinder ones, the one who turns into a snake lady briefly. There's some sweet girls in there. Some of the others, like, pick up the cue to start giving their tributes food. Sejanus is the nicest boy.
So you wrote to me and you were like, talking about how he is too pure, he is the best, he is... Yeah,
I don't like him.
Sweet child.
By the way,
no, he's too good.
There's no complication to his character whatsoever. It's just he's very loyal to District 12, or I mean District 2, because that is where he's from, and he will never feel capital. And this could be interesting in a more nuanced character, but it's just not. It's just him, and he also becomes a peacekeeper. Yes.
Well, he joins Peacekeeper School, and you also find out later on that he is sneaking around. He sympathizes with the rebels.
Yeah.
And he joins the rebel underground because he has a ton of money. His family's super rich, so they're using him to get money and weapons. But even that doesn't make him more interesting.
No, and Snow does warn him off of this. Snow is like, hey, don't. He does try, because this is a bad idea. This is if you're in the middle of the peacekeeping thing, which, by the way, doesn't seem like that bad of a gig. Like,
no, it's military school, but it's not that hard.
No, and they give them copious lessons and everything. Like, the kids who aren't very good with guns or combat get a lot of extra training and don't get in trouble for it. They all make enough money that they can go to these parties at the Seam every Friday.
It seems like
every Saturday.
I guess.
Sorry.
It seems like what makes the peacekeepers such SOBs ultimately is just that they don't have anything fun to do after, like, once you get sent to your district, you're just kind of bored.
Yeah, and they take it, so they eventually in history they're going to take away the parties, right? Like, I think they take away the parties at the end of this book. But
what's interesting is, I guess that makes sense. It's like our police forces in major cities that's not military academy. That is police academy. We know how wacky that gets. No, it's police academy is a school, and you are taught to be a police officer, and then you get assigned an area of the city, and then you become a homicidal maniac, apparently, which is what happens in America. So I'm assuming that that's the parallel. These aren't military people. They're training to become neighborhood police officers, and we see that eventually they just become fascist arms of a fascist government, the way police tend to be.
Because it's all fun and games on the weekends, but also they have to facilitate hangings. Coriolanus has to get used to being, like, on the sidelines of these hangings, helping push back the crowd. Sejanus, his participation in the rebellion leads to his hanging, but it's actually because Coriolanus submits evidence that he is passing secrets.
Right. He records him with, I bet, I didn't know this, Jabberjays have an on and off switch, which is interesting.
Yeah, isn't that weird? I actually really, I like how much, and the Mockingjay parallel is so, hit you over the head over and over again, because he hates Mockingjays.
Really? Does Coriolanus Snow hate Mockingjays?
Mockingjays. He hates them so much, and it's kind of... It's to the point where it's almost comical, where the number of times it's cited that he hates these things. And, he has a friend who's, a Mockingjay whisperer, basically, who's really good at rounding up Mockingjays, and he resents this. He resents how well that kid treats them.
Now, it doesn't help that the Mockingjays live in the trees at the old hanging tree.
The old hanging tree, because we get the hanging tree song, in addition to actual hanging occurring off the tree.
And the Mockingjays and the Jabberjays live in the woods behind the hanging tree, and so when someone dies, their last words get, screamed to the heavens. And when Sejanus dies, he screams for his mother, and then all the Jabberjays just scream in his voice.
Yeah, it's real bad.
It's horrifying.
It's real bad.
So I can understand not being a fan, but he's not a fan of the Mockingjays specifically. Yeah. They just sing songs.
They sing songs. Speaking of songs, we do also get the lullaby that Katniss sings, the Rue lullaby, at a different point. And, there's... Fan theory is that Katniss is related to Lucy Gray Baird. I think that's a pretty... I mean, there's no reason for her not to be. Sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't think she was related to Lucy Greybeard.
Well,
I thought, okay, can I give you not my fan theory, but my predictions that didn't come true?
yeah, please do.
Before we get to like how this book ends.
Yeah.
We also haven't covered like his relationship with Lucy Greybeard in the district, but we'll get to that. My predictions of what was going to happen in this book were, I thought, because this book is not told in first person, it's told in third person. So I was like, well, that's a choice. Why is Snow not narrating this book? Why did Suzanne Collins choose to have him be in third person? I honest to God thought she was setting up that Coriolanus Snow was going to die by the end of this book, and that Sejanus was going to actually be who we think is Coriolanus Snow. I don't know really why I thought that, but I thought Sejanus was too good of a person, and that something was going to happen to trigger him becoming a bad person, or like who like a fascist leader, and that he was going to have learned this from the real Snow. Totally off guard, off on that. I also thought that Lucy Greybeard was going. I honestly thought she was going to end up being Greasy Say.
I would have been so happy about that. I kind of had the Sejanus thought because he seemed like a character that could have had more nuance if we really went in deep. And he also had such sympathy for 12 in a very different way. Because Coriolanus' sympathy for 12 is so directly connected to him having feelings for Girl.
Yeah, he does like Girl. He likes Girl so much that he becomes like a part of he like... In full peacekeeper like trainee regalia, he shows up at their house in the district and sits around while they sing folk songs.
Yeah.
And meets Lucy Greybeard's evil ex-boyfriend.
The most Hadestown character of all. This boy.
Yeah.
This boy is like, he's sort of part of he's just a bad boy.
Yeah, he would have a leather jacket and a DA hairstyle if he could.
Yes.
Because he was cheating on Lucy Greybeard with the mayor's daughter.
Yeah.
Who's also an evil little spitfire from out of like a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical.
Oh, don't worry, she's gonna get shot.
Yeah, don't worry, she's gonna get shot right through the face by Coriolanus Snow.
He murders some people.
The evil ex-boyfriend, yeah, because Coriolanus Snow finds a meeting between Sejanus and the rebels, who the evil ex-boyfriend is a part of, like supplying weapons, yada yada yada. The daughter of the mayor shows up and is going to rat him out, so Coriolanus shoots both of them. There's an investigation, and that's when Coriolanus records Sejanus' confession on a Jabberjay and sends it back to the capital, where Sejanus ends up getting hung and screams for his mother. There are so many books in this book. You ever wonder the origins of all the songs from the Hunger Games? Well, you sure do learn that Lucy Greybeard wrote them.
Yeah, she wrote all of them. And end of the day, Coriolanus and Lucy Gray decide that they're going to run away together.
Yes.
This is around the time he snaps.
Well, because he believes that he is about to be caught out, because he knows it's only a matter of time before the weapons that were used to kill the people are traced back to him. So he's going to run away. She's going to run away. They have a plan. They're going to escape. At the very last minute, he gets told that he's actually being sent to like Rich Boy Academy, Fancy Boy Training School.
Because he has been testing to see if he can be next level peacekeeper, like a leadership guy, basically.
Yeah,
and
officer school.
And he's so good at tests. Coriolanus is so good at tests that he finds this out, and now he's facing the decision of, well, do I go to officer school or do I run away with Girl? That's when he goes crazy, right?
Well, they run away together. He's like, all right, I'll go. They find a cabin in the woods where the troubadours sometimes hang out, and that's where all of the weapons have been stashed.
This is also definitely a cabin that the two people from 13 are hanging out in.
She pulls out a knife and is like, I'm going to go cut some Katniss in the woods. I'm going to go find some Katniss. Don't wait up for me. I'll be Everdeen. And she runs off. And yeah, he starts having a mental breakdown where it's done really well.
I think this part is written really well, in as much as it's super unnerving. Enjoy it.
He starts talking himself into her betraying him.
Yes.
Even though all she's done is headed off to find some Katniss, but he also starts hallucinating. Doesn't something happens where he starts hallucinating, right?
Mm-hmm. It's not that, but it's sort of unclear what's happening here.
Yeah, because he has this full paranoid breakdown where he thinks she's gonna kill him, so he grabs a gun and goes hunting her in the woods. Like, she has no idea like what's going on, unless she does.
Because he doesn't really ever give himself away in this, aside from being crazy, but he never finds her. And he is chasing after her at this point with a rifle.
Yeah.
Because he's convinced himself that she's betrayed him. And as far as we know, he never sees her again after this.
He never sees her again. Yeah, he actually thinks he shoots her at one point, but then he doesn't think he shot her. Like, it's a nightmare sequence. It's the best, I think the best writing in the book.
I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah, it's super freaky, it's super scary, and he becomes not an out-of-control monster, but it's like all the paranoia and all the jealousy that he had already throughout the book just kind of comes to a head. Like, it's that thing where some guy gets mad at his girlfriend because she's keeping him from achieving his full potential. And then he like lashes out at her. It's really that.
It is.
Because she's never been anything but sweet to him and nice to him and like sung songs to him. And yeah, he's a little piss boy by the end.
He is a little piss boy by the end. And his little piss boy behavior is rewarded. He goes back to the Capitol, as we said. This is a test, and you passed. And now you're going to help facilitate the Hunger Games.
Yep.
And you know what part of that facilitating the Hunger Games will be? It will be finding out that your father invented the Hunger Games.
And everyone reading the book goes, oh.
This is the thing where we're getting an explanation for something we didn't really need an explanation for, but it's like, sure.
Yeah.
Legacy.
It's presented as if we were like, finally, we know who invented the hunger, but we never really wondered any. Like, it's really a weird, like, like, if you're wondering why your father and I are such enemies, it's because we were drunk one night as students, and I came up with the idea for the Hunger Games as a joke. The next day, he presented it as his own idea. Well, you find out that, like, the guy was, like, is drunk and high all the time. His name is, by the way, is, like, High Bottom.
Yeah, Dean High Bottom.
Because they call him high as a kite bottom. The reason he's drunk and high all the time is because he never intended the Hunger Games to be a real thing. It was like a thought exercise. Uh-huh. And he's like, no one would ever go for it. It's merciless and cruel and hateful and horrible, and no one would ever put up with this. And now he just lives because he knows that it's really his fault.
I'm pretty sure that's going to be Peter Dinklage, by the way.
That is Peter Dinklage's character.
Good casting.
Yes. Yeah.
That particular, because it is a very Tyrion Lannister character.
Is he going to do a terrible British accent?
I hope he has blonde hair and then not blonde hair. I have really high hopes for this.
We really can't emphasize enough, though, how much Dr. Gall is a part of this whole thing.
She's one of the main characters. Initially, when she pops in, it feels like she's maybe just going to be at the fringes of the book. She ends up, she is trying to mentor Snow without him noticing.
Yeah.
She's asking him to write these weird essays about how important the Hunger Games are.
Yeah, this was a test and you passed it, as you said.
Yeah.
And then Coriolanus kills Dean Highbottom by slipping poison into his drugs.
Yeah, this book is sowing the seeds for his only one true love, poisoning people.
It's not okay. You keep saying things like this is hinting at, or this sows the seeds of. No, it sows and then reaps the seeds right in front of you. It's like, here, we're planting some ideas about him being a poisoner. Now you're seeing him poison.
No,
now you're seeing him appreciate the effects of his poison.
This is it's kind of a 1984 ending. It's kind of a he loved Big Brother, because it seems like he's fine with everything at the end.
It's weird. So yeah, it's a real downer ending. You find out that he ends up being adopted basically by Sejanus's family, who never find out it was his fault.
Okay, yeah, how does that not make him feel terrible?
And that's the thing, is like, that's why I'm like, this isn't a book about how this formerly good kid became a bad kid. This is a book about a bad person who just had the, like, I think I'm a good person the whole time, but I'm actually just a bad, like, I'm a lot more comfortable when I'm just being a bad person.
Fully
when I tried
embraces
to be good,
the badness.
it was awkward. Yeah. I got Lucy Greybear. Like, We never find out what happens to Lucy Greybeard. I believe she became Greasy Say. That's my headcanon until I'm proven otherwise.
I have no issue with that.
Greasy Greybeard. I think it's because at one point at the beginning of the book, when she gets off the train at the very beginning, they say that she looks greasy. And I was like, is this an Easter egg? Is she going to be greasy? Like, is that why they call her greasy? Because she's just naturally greasy, like the whole book. Can we talk for a second about... hold on, I have to find his name again. Can we talk for a second about Tony Award-winning actor Santino Fontana, who won the Tony Award for Broadway's Tootsie a few years back?
Wait, does he read this book?
Santino Fontana reads The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And I was like, hot dang, this guy's super talented.
Yep.
He's also a good singer.
He is.
So he's going to be able to pull off these songs. He's Prince Hans from Frozen. I mean, come on. He's in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I mean, come on. He was in Sunday in the Park with George on Broadway. I mean, come on. Not only does he not sing a single one of these songs, he speaks them as awkwardly as you can speak song lyrics. It sounds like when a guy is like, I wrote you a song, but I'm just going to sing it. I'm going to speak it to you. And he does teen girl voices for all the girl characters. This is a kind of hard to listen to book on Santino Fontana's part. He even does teen boy voice a few times. Yeah, some guys kind of talk like this.
So bad always. It's a bummer. I saw him in Tootsie. It was good.
Tony Award winning role.
He was good.
Tony Award winning.
Book was weak. Show was fun.
That musical blew us all away and stands with us to this day. It changed.
Right? Yeah. It's a very cookie cutter musical. He was about a man pretending
to be a woman.
It's a very cookie cutter musical, but he did a performance that was good.
Isn't it wild that of Tootsie, Mrs. Doubtfire, and Some Like It Hot, of those three, it's a guy in a dress musicals, and we were like, aren't we past this? That it was actually Some Like It Hot that ended up being like the most like progressive of all of those. That was like, no, we've got a better take on the concept of man in dress.
It actually doesn't surprise me that much because I think Some Like It Hot, the source material is shockingly progressive for 1959.
And that, like, Mrs. Doubtfire is shockingly regressive for the 1990s.
Yeah.
Like, it's about how it doesn't matter how bad a father you are. If you're wacky enough, you should be allowed to see your kids more.
And that's how it ends. It's great.
Yeah.
We all love it.
And Tootsie is about, isn't it hard to be a white guy in Hollywood?
Tootsie, the Broadway one, has some pretty good little weak, I don't know, like it tries to be woke a couple of times. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I'm sorry that it wasn't Tatiana Maslany this time.
I was so disappointed. I was just like, well, I guess, like she's still riding that rocket to the top with Marvel money. So she probably is like, I don't need to do the Ballad of Songbird and Snake. I'm a Hulk now.
She wasn't a Hulk yet.
But I'm sure she had signed the contract.
She had been conscripted to be a Hulk.
2020? Oh yeah, she was already doing some mocap work.
Sure, she was. Well, we've come to the end because my computer is going to die soon. But we've also just come to the end.
Yeah, well, Ballad of Songbird and Snake was received okay. Some people liked it. Some people said the storytelling itself trends desperate at times. Chapters close on violent cliffhangers that edge into parody. There are too many folk music interludes and some ludicrous franchise callbacks, but it still gives you a lot to chew on. Seems to be what people...
I agree with literally all of that, particularly the last part, because I couldn't stop thinking about this book.
Yeah,
really in the weeds.
I mean, Suzanne Collins is definitely a smart person, and I mean the big philosophical point that Viola Davis's character keeps trying to make is that we are all brutal animals underneath, and if you take away all of our rules, people will be reduced to animals, and the Hunger Games are proof of that. Even though 5 seconds of thinking is like, you're not taking away society at all. You're actually inflicting bizarre limits and rules onto people and saying you have to kill each other. Like, of course people are going to become animals. You are starving them and throwing them into a pit and forcing them to kill each other. I mean, obviously we're not supposed to side with her. Does it surprise you to learn that the songs from the novel spurred several original covers on YouTube?
I'm shocked.
But again, I didn't hear anything about this book after it came out.
And I think this year, because of the movie, because it's because everything comes back eventually, people are very focused on the Hunger Games again.
It's 10 years since the first film. It is where they're making the new one. It's coming out in November. You and I will see it. Probably not together, but we will see it.
No, yeah, we'll do our best.
Collins was finishing up her first draft when she wrote to Lawrence, what's his face, the director, and she drops him a line. He's working on that little Nemo movie that nobody saw that came on Netflix and disappeared, Slumberland. He was working on that, and she was like, I'm writing a new Hunger Games book. And he was like, well, nobody told me. And he read it and was like, let's make this movie. I have no idea how they're going to make this into a movie without it being a million years long. But I am looking forward to Rachel Ziegler. I'm looking forward to the guy who played Chino in West Side Story playing Sejanus, which is perfect casting because he's a sad, nice boy in West Side Story. He's a sad, nice boy in Songbird and Snake. And Hunter Schafer as Tigress.
She's on Euphoria, correct?
Euphoria, trans actress.
Oh, interesting.
Playing Tigress. So I'm wondering if they're going to play up Tigress's like self-identity. Like that's a big part of how people are in the Capitol, like choosing how they identify, choosing who they are. I don't know. It's interesting casting. Hunter Schafer is very adamant that all of her roles are like political, basically. Like, so I'm curious as to what they're going to do with that. I hope they do something with the character.
So more than any, we were sort of saying au revoir to the Hunger Games, but I think for now today, Piece of Toast Pod on the internet. That's us. That's where we are. I think for today we should probably say goodbye to Sejanus.
Are we gonna? It's Sejanus.
Sejanus.
Let's be.
Let's be respectful of Sejanus. Yes.
Put some anus on that name.
I hate it. Goodbye.
Where can you find us?
Oh, I just have the Pizza Toast Pod on Twitter, Pizza Toast Podcast on Facebook, pizzatoastpod@gmail.com. You're P. Corey Gonzalez on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. I'm on Letterboxd. Nope. You can find me.
You are.
Yeah.
And we're not coming back, of course, with the movie next time. We are coming back, though, with another book that we know.
Yeah, we definitely know what it is.
Why don't you announce it? Because the movie is coming out in a couple of weeks, and we got to be ready.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, we're doing Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume.
Are You There, God? It's Me, a big step sideways from the Hunger Games.
A classic in its own right.
Yes. So will we increase our busts? You'll have to find out when you listen to the next episode.
All right. That being said, goodbye, Sejanus.
Goodbye, Sejanus.